Okay. Hey, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us tonight and wonderful job making the time to be on this Zoom. I'm proud of you for that, just for showing up and wanting to learn and wanting to expand your knowledge and hopefully learn some new tips, tricks, or at least get a refresher on some good information that's going to help you write better content that's going to connect more with your ideal customer, right? Because in our social selling space, people are first buying you, right? You're essentially selling your network on yourself. You're helping them realize that they want to do business with you, right? And once they know that they want to do business with you, then they are going to trust you and be confident buying from you, right? So we want to explain to them that we are someone that they can trust. We are someone that they would like to be friends with. We are someone that they can build a relationship with. We are someone that they relate to. And once they're really sold on you, then they're going to take a look at your products, but not really before that. So I'm going to go through some reasons why that's the case, but Jessica's going to do a really great rundown of all the components to making that happen through your content. And we do this through storytelling. This is the best way for us to connect with like the hearts and emotions of people. Okay. People love, love, love good stories. That's why we have so many popular books and TV shows and plays and movies, right? Storytelling is truly a part of the human experience. Okay. People love to be told a good story. They love to read a good story, and even better if they can feel what the writer is saying. Even better if they can vividly picture themselves in the story, right? So we're going to talk tonight about how you can do this with your content. And that doesn't mean every post needs to be a 6-paragraph novel, okay? And in fact, it really shouldn't be, because ain't nobody got time for that, right? Every once in a while, sure. If you got a wonderful story that's captivating, it's really going to get to the hearts of people. I know every so often, you and I probably see a post go by that's like long and worth your time, right? But the vast majority of content needs to be read on the fly. Most people are using mobile devices. They're on the go. They're sitting in pickup line. They're checking their phone quickly before they get out of bed in the morning, right? That's the general vibe that we're going to see in people consuming our content. So we need to remember that when we're creating our content, okay? And it's going to be really important how you start your content, because you'll notice the way content is presented on Facebook, you've got like 2 lines of text above the fold, right? Like 2 to 4 lines, depending on if you're like mobile or desktop. You got to have this hook in the beginning, right? It doesn't need to be some crazy newspaper headline, but the people need to know what you're talking about. Does it apply to them? Is it relevant to their life? And what are they going to learn from it, right? So remember that when you're creating your content, but the first thing we really need to do is identify our ideal audience. And you can do this through hashtags, through followers of other influencers and organizations, through Facebook interest groups, wherever you want, but you're going to want to find your tribe. Then build your network full of these ideal customers so that you know that when you post and share a story, the right eyes are going to see it. It's going to land on the right eyeballs, right? There are full trainings on that, about how to find your ideal customer, how to know that you're speaking to your target audience. So we're not going to go into that totally today, but you have to start out by knowing who you want to be talking to. Because if you're trying to talk to everybody all at once, you're really not talking to anybody that intentionally, right? So know your tribe, find your tribe, friend your tribe, okay? And build it from there, full of people that fit that ideal customer avatar. All right. And if you need help with that, we have tons of trainings on that. But the next step is to really connect with them through the content you are sharing. And to do this in the most impactful way, you need to decide your areas of expertise, or what you're going to be posting about that's going to be easy for you to consistently be creating short stories about. So this doesn't mean that you need to be a complete expert and know all the things about a certain topic. Okay. You're just sharing things that you might know that could help somebody else that doesn't quite know that yet, right? You're one step ahead of them. Or maybe you just learned something that you think is a fantastic piece of information that you want to relate to your life and the lives of your network, and you want to share that within a story framework, right? So I'm going to give you some questions to kind of think about that will just get the brainstorming going. If anything comes to your mind, jot down some things, because these are going to be sentences, statements, maybe just keywords for things that later you can develop content about. Okay. So think about these. What life experiences have you had that lend you some type of credit or could help you serve someone who doesn't have that same experience? Okay. Again, it doesn't need to be extravagant. It could be just be something you've gone through that to someone who hasn't gone through that yet, you can give them a word of advice. Okay. Or what's a struggle that you overcame that you're now on the other side of? Again, big or small. Okay. It could be like mustering up the motivation to go on a walk this morning. Or it could be handling the grief from the death of a loved one, right? It could be anything along the spectrum. Something that you know will land or be a part of the people's lives that you're speaking to. Okay. What is a story from your past that you want to pass on? And I'll give you a little tip with that one. If you're thinking of one right now, like a vivid memory, a lot of times it's like, when I was a kid with my mom or my dad or my grandmother, we went on a family vacation, or like this thing happened. Can you hear me still? Sorry, that was weird. Gave me an alert. We come up with these big memories, these vivid memories that often can be parsed out into separate little stories and lessons too. So remember that it doesn't need to be the longest story ever of the most extravagant family vacation you've ever been on, right? Like pull out parts of that and think about why each piece of that was powerful for you, what you learned from it, what you remembered from it, why it's so vivid. Okay. So that's a little something too. Now, what is a fear that you have that you're learning to overcome right now? Like I was alluding to earlier, are there bits and pieces of information that you're starting to learn in a certain area of your life or a certain area of knowledge, and you're starting to overcome things that were a fear for you, or were uncomfortable for you, or were a new skill for you, or something that you're currently kind of navigating? It's okay to share bits and pieces of that too. Okay. The important thing is, which Jessica will talk about this, is to not share about something that's like a huge problem in your life right now, right? Like you're not sharing the like ugly mess that is happening. That's not the point. The point is to share the lesson. Okay. Now, this question is kind of my favorite. Do you have a hilarious story about like a mistake or embarrassing moment that other people might relate to? People love to laugh, and they also love to know that other people make mistakes and that other people's kids are crazy like theirs are. And they have bonkers stuff happen in their life, right? They want to know that other people are dealing with the same crazy that they're dealing with, right? So your life does not mean to be perfect, and it also shouldn't be, because that's what people are going to latch onto. They're going to say, hey, she's like me. I also had that happen. And you'll be surprised when you start sharing stories like this, people will have memories of similar things happening to them. I shared one time a story about when I was younger. I was thinking about a vivid memory. I was going through these questions. I shared a story about when I was younger. I remember almost drowning. I was really young, and it spurred on this fear of like water and swimming. And I still don't really go in the water a lot to this day. I can swim, like I'm fine, but it's a weird, like not subliminal, but like unrealized fear that's still like, I'm still kind of dealing with. Like I don't love open bodies of water. And I like vividly remember sinking down, gulping in water and looking up, and my dad reached into the top of the pool and grabbed me out by my hair to pull me out of the pool. I was sinking fast. I was a little kid. I can still remember how that feels, how that looks, and how frightening that was. And I was so surprised at the people who commented on that with their like near drowning stories, their fear of water, like all this stuff where it was like a really vivid memory from when I was a small child. All of these people related to it in some shape or form. And it just sparks a conversation, sparks a connection, sparks a little bit of that, she's like me, and creates a little bit of community, which each tiny little story that you can tell like that. Okay. And you can think of things like specific steps that you took to have, success in a certain area. If there are things that you've kind of been on a journey with that you've learned to take these certain steps to make life easier in a certain way, or to have success, maybe you've really dove into a certain topic. Maybe it's fitness, maybe it's motherhood, maybe it's your faith, maybe it's cooking, maybe you're taking classes, maybe you're whatever, right? Like maybe it's just a hobby. And you're like, this is how I started, and this is kind of how it went. These are the things I learned along the way, and this is where I am now. Like, how cool is that, right? So think about that. If there's like little steps that you can kind of elaborate on, that would just help people, right? They don't need to be in depth, but there's something that people might not know. Okay. I just never want you to discount the value that you can offer just by telling a good story that somebody wants to read. Even if it's something as simple as saving someone time and energy, saving someone a Google search, right? Even if it's just something as simple as that. I know if you guys follow me, you know, I share a lot about board games. My family loves board games. People all the time now from my network message me specifically asking for a game to buy their kids for Christmas, buy their kids for birthday, to bring on their family vacation. They have people coming over for the weekend and they want to do game night. What's your favorite family game, you know, for game night? I have people like that messaging me all the time because they know that those are the types of things that I talk about, right? So navigate to which questions here stand out the most for you. What areas of these types of content can you talk about for a long time? Do you have a lot of stories about that certain area? Can you pull bits and pieces out of stories and lessons and categories of your life that are going to be beneficial for other people? And those are kind of going to be your content pillars. Okay. It's okay if you've got 3 to 5 of them, but I find that each of us has probably a family structure that's familiar to us, a set of hobbies and interests that are familiar to us, and then a set of kind of lifelong experiences or lifetime history experiences that we can kind of talk about. That usually relate to like what type of upbringing we had and where we took our vacations and what we did for fun. And like they all kind of surround general topics, I find. So pull those stories out and people are going to start to get to know you through those like repeated stories, not saying the same story over and over again, but like, oh, she's talking about this like topic again, right? Like that's something interesting that I enjoy reading from her and I'm going to get to know her as a person. Okay. So remember that and kind of think, okay, this topic keeps coming up. This is something that I should talk about more, because if we're all over the place, guys, and people don't know like what they're going to get from us, we are seen as not as dependable, a little uncertain, right? So it gets kind of, I don't know, they're more likely to scroll by, right? If they're like, I don't know what she's talking about. She's always rambling about some stuff, right? Try not to be that person, okay? You want them to stop their scroll, click, read more, and really read a good story from you. And sometimes your stories are going to be about plexus. The rest of the time, they'll be about something completely different. That's just showing your audience who you are, allowing your audience to build a connection with you, okay? You want your audience to feel like they know you, like they're getting a peek into your life and could call you a friend in the real world, right? You'll notice that a lot of people online nowadays are talking about present tense things. This is what happened to me today. This is what I'm going to do today. This is what's on the news today. A lot of stuff is now. If you can really illustrate a story and use vivid language that of something that has happened to you, and they can put themselves in that story, that is so different, so powerful. And if you can do it concisely, where they're not spending 15 minutes reading your story, which they would not, they would scroll by if it was that long, even better. Okay. But I want you to just like let your freak flag fly. Okay. Be hilarious, be awkward, be silly, be honest. Okay. Just be you, tell your stories and don't try to tell anybody else's stories, or don't try to tell stories the way you think someone else would tell them. Right. It's your story. It's your perspective. It's your lessons. It's your words. Okay. And people can see right through it if it doesn't sound like you, especially if they've seen you writing, they've been reading your stories and they've been becoming familiar with your content. They're going to know if it's like something that's like, that doesn't really sound like her, you know, because if they're used to hearing you talk, they're probably going to scroll by that because they're like, that's not how Allie talks. Like, that doesn't even sound like her at all. No thanks. Like, I'm friends with Allie, not whoever wrote that thing. Right. And people in your network are going to likely start as a complete stranger, right? And they're going to come to know you. And then they're going to start to kind of like who you are. And then they're going to gain trust in you because you built that relationship. And this is what makes them feel confident in doing business with you. And you have to understand that time and consistency are your best friends here. Sharing stories, even little ones, like authentically over time is the key. And listen, some people are not going to like you. That's okay, right? They're going to scroll on by. That story is completely irrelevant to their life. And your brain is very worried about what other people think. You need to tell it to like, chill out. I've got this. This is not a popularity contest, okay? This is not high school. This is about being authentic so that we can make the biggest impact in the lives of the people around us, right? We need to know the best way to reach them, and we need to know that who we are reaching is the correct person that we're able to impact. You want your audience to feel like you are giving to them so much more than you're wanting to take from them. And even if all you're doing is making them laugh or saving them time, right? Like I said earlier, maybe you're just saving them a Google search. This is value that you should be giving away as often as you possibly can. So when you do talk about Plexus, they're more inclined to reciprocate and give you their business, because your network over time is going to be going from just a casual observer, right? Like they're a brand new friend, who's this girl about, to kind of a curious friend, like maybe they're click and read more, maybe they like to post, then a more engaged follower, right? They're answering your calls to action. They're engaging with your posts and giving advice. They're telling you their stories back in the comments. Then they start seeing more of your Plexus posts, because all of that is really warming to the algorithm, right? That interaction, that engagement really warms up the algorithm. And then they're going to be an interested potential, because they're going to be seeing all your Plexus stuff. And hopefully they become a happy customer, right? This takes time. Okay. You're not going to tell one good story tomorrow morning and then have 26 customers messaging you, right? It's not going to happen. Your influence is going to be built up by the stories you tell over the course of the coming weeks and months. Okay. That's going to build this long-term trust. And people are going to make purchases based on the emotions that they're feeling. They then kind of look logically to justify those decisions and justify purchases. But they're first going to be leading with their heart. They're going to be leading with their emotion, which I'm excited for you to hear from Jessica all about that, because the worst thing you can do is spout off a bunch of facts and figures and nutrition information and think it's going to really mean something to people. It won't to most people. There are the select few that really care. I'm sure you can think of the one person on your team that really wanted to know all the nutrition facts and they wanted all the scientific answers. And like, there's totally those people out there, but the vast majority could care less. Okay. That's not what they want to read on their Facebook feed. So in order to captivate your audience, you have to get into their feelings. So how do we tell great stories that people want to read? That's what Jess is going to cover. And I am so excited for you to hear from her, because she tells some really great stories. And I find that I gravitate towards her authentic self, just showing up as she is and welcoming her audience into her life. So go ahead, Jess.
So I'm going to start with telling you that what has happened in your life, the stories that you have, nothing is too small. I don't want you to already be thinking, oh gosh, like my life is boring. It's not exciting. Nothing ever happens. There's lessons and there is some value to everything that has happened. So do not discredit. I'm going to start with that, because you might be, I'm a ruminator. My brain will go, well, I don't have anything. Like, I don't do anything. No, we're plucking that out. We're not going to allow it to sit there. Okay. Like Ellie said, people love stories. And when you start writing your stories, they might suck to start. I'm gonna tell you right now, I am wordy. Holy moly, am I wordy. I look at some of my old posts and they're like, down. Oh, she's still going. Yep, she gave me every single detail. So it's okay to suck at the beginning. And you have to, this is a skill that I have learned over time, and I had to be not so great at it to get better at it. So give yourself grace in the learning process, and know that if you don't hit every single bullet point that I talk about in a post every single time, it's okay. That's all right. Again, give yourself some grace. So the 4 main points in how to tell a good story is you're going to pick a pain point. So I'm going to start with like a Plexus post. You might have multiple things that have been better for you in your life. Maybe your bloat went away, your skin got better. Maybe you had been taking some other prescriptions that you don't need to take anymore. Your mood might be better. All of those can be a separate post. They don't all have to go into the same post. Sometimes we list those things in a post, but for the most part, that is 4 separate posts. And that, when we start looking at that, we're like, oh, I can batch content. That's how you can batch content. And meaning I'm writing multiple posts and I'm saving them for later, because I can pick those pain points that I had before and I can create an entire post about that. So you're going to pick a pain point. you're going to give a snapshot. And this is where I was lacking before, where the snapshot was the entire story, where I didn't need to. It's more of, I dealt with this and now I feel like this. In a nutshell, that is essentially what that snapshot's going to look like for, let's just say, like a Plexus product post. Then the biggest point, the absolute biggest point, is going to be describing the emotion. That is where you can expound. That's where you can go into detail, because people want to be able to relate to how you are feeling. So many times you hear how social media is a highlight reel. Social media is a highlight reel. And when you post something that is raw and real, people gravitate towards that. Saying, I disliked how I had such good efforts in the gym. I had such great nutrition. Yeah, I was bloated all the time. I was so discouraged. I thought this is how things were always going to be. Expounding on those emotions, and that draws your reader in. And last, leaving the nitty-gritty details out. Being more diligent on describing the emotion. I don't need to know the day, the time, what the sky looks like. Like, I don't need to know all of that. I need to know how you were feeling. That is the most important thing. And that's vulnerable. It's vulnerable to share how you feel. And that can be hard to do, but pick two emotions. Pick those two emotions that you had felt for, even if it's a non-Plexus post. So for instance, my son has ADHD, and I have been really diving into and telling my audience like how that makes me feel as a parent. I don't have to tell him every little thing about his quirks and the weird things that are hard, but just how as a parent that makes me feel discouraged. I don't know what I'm doing. And people can relate to those things. Let me look at my notes and make sure I'm staying on point, because like I said, I'm a wordy lady. All right, I also wanted to give an example of a business post, because I think we also can discredit, like, even if you made like a $25 business building bonus, that's huge. You know what that would pay for? That would pay for my kid's swim lesson that I just had to sign him up for. That's not something that came out of my budget. How did that make me feel? That made me feel accomplished. That made me feel relief. That made me feel that that could go towards something else in my house. So I like to start with first the feeling. So for example, I was tired of always saying no. My pain point was unable to afford a vacation or extracurricular for my kids. My snapshot was watching my paycheck hit the bank account, then watching it quickly get eaten up by bills and groceries. Describing those emotions, feeling defeated because there is no time to go get another physical job, discouraged that this is as good as it gets. And then how it is now and the opportunity that I'm presenting. I'm getting paid to work the hours that I want. I don't have to go anywhere. What else, right? I have a creative outlet and I'm rewarded for that. I don't know if any of y'all got the consistency bonus, but like that, I'm totally going to be making a post about that. I kind of forgot about that they had offered that, and I was getting ready to do my kids' swim lessons. And y'all, I didn't have to pay for that. That feeling I had, that's what I'm going to tell my audience about. I don't need to tell my audience, I got $150 into my bank account. I am such a rich individual. This can make all your problems go away. You know how we see some of those points, like the big check, and the big checks are great, but what is someone most going to relate to? Most of our audiences are going to relate to being able to take less stress off your life. Stress is a huge thing right now. And if we can give them an opportunity within our story to take less stress away from them, they're going to, like Ali said, they're going to click read more. How are you going to help me not have as much stress? Because you just explained every emotion I was having, and you're going to give me some kind of solution, or you're at least going to make me feel better about what I'm currently going through. I think I'd already explained a little bit on the product side. So a little more going through the 4 different points with the example of I'm tired of being so bloated. So my pain point is feeling bloated despite all my nutrition and fitness efforts. My snapshot is despite all my efforts, I don't seem to be moving forward. But now that's not the same. It has changed for me, and I'm feeling better describing those emotions. I used to feel so discouraged. I'd quit on myself all the time. I'd feel hopeless, not seeing much results, and I simply wanted to feel better. And then you give your opportunity, your hook. You have to present that to them. You have to give them that opportunity at the end. Do not discredit giving your offer to somebody, because if you don't offer it, they ain't going to take it. They're not going to read between the lines. They're just going to go, well, that was a really lovely story of hers. I'm going to go now. They don't realize you're selling it. And it's okay to say that you're selling it. Yes, we share, but I also want you to get comfortable with saying, I'm selling something that's really awesome and really good. Have some confidence in that and know that what you're providing them is amazing and it's worth their dollar. People are going to feel that. So if you're not quite feeling that when you're writing it, you need to be writing some words down to describe why Plexus is so amazing. So then you can start telling yourself that. I know I've gone through seasons where it's like, maybe I'm not sleeping great, my nutrition's not great, and I question whether or not the products are working. I have to go back and make sure that my belief is there so that it is felt through my posts, because it's going to be felt through your posts if you're trying to fake it till you make it. And I mean, we can do that a little bit, but you also need to make sure that your feelings about what you're writing is in check, or people are going to see right through it and they're going to feel right through that. So I think that's all I have.
I'm muted. Sorry, I was talking to myself. That was great. No, that was so good. I loved walking through that step-by-step process again. Like really identifying like what is the main thing I want them to feel coming out of this, because we are always scanning our environment for things that relate to us, make our lives easier, or allow us to be like the center of the story, right? Like we're the main character of our story. Our customers are the main character of their story, right? There's no way they are ever going to care more about you than they do about what can benefit them. Okay. So remember to be writing that through the lens of what's really going to speak to their feelings, to their emotions, because that's what's going to make them want to click read more. And like Jessica was saying, really getting into how those emotions play out in your life, and use several different adjectives, right? Like really, if you need to brainstorm some stuff, like this is how this felt at the time, this is how it feels now, or when you're writing, a story from the past, just to be a piece of relatable content for them, like get the emotions in there. And I, back to my like near drowning story, right? There's a deep fear there. It was like very frightening, very unbelievable, but also like I gained a new trust for my dad. Like my dad is the one that pulled me out. Like that is a whole thing in and of itself, right? Like that has some emotion attached to it. And so you can really get into feelings without putting too much unrelated detail in there. Like if the details aren't really reinforcing the main point of the story, leave them out. Like nobody cares what you were wearing and nobody cares what you have for breakfast that day, right? Like it's irrelevant. If it's not reinforcing the main point of the story, leave it out. I think that's how we keep our stories concise too. It's like you go down these steps that Jessica was saying and understand what the before looks like, what the middle hard looks like, what the after looks like, and what the lesson is at the end. And, really describing what those emotions are beforehand and after. And that's what's going to allow people to kind of see that transformation, no matter what that is. And it could be a Plexus thing, and it could be a product thing. It could be a business thing. It could be something like, helping your children who have ADHD, right? Like where were you before? How are you feeling? What is the struggle? How are you feeling now? Like, that whole process, can be related to so many different topics. And our job is to identify the people that we're talking to, confidently tell good stories to those people so that they'll actually want to listen, build trust in us, build our relationship with us, and feel confident in partnering with us in business, because we know that we have something that can absolutely change their life, but nobody's going to do business with us until they trust us as a person. So that's what storytelling can do for you in your Facebook network, you know, whatever social media platform you're on, but it really works well on Facebook with the way posts are formatted and presented in the news feed. Storytelling really works well on Facebook. So
I will say you can take that as a reel, because I have done it before, and I don't do it
yes,
all
good
the
point.
time, but I do take it and I just do some music background, and I'll just do little verbiage, like little lines of a snapshot of the story that I'm telling. It's not nearly as long, but you can take that same concept and put it into video form. It takes some practice, but don't think that you constantly have to recreate for Facebook and for Instagram. It can work both ways. So don't create more work for yourself. Try and see how you can concise it down even more and possibly put it into a video format.
Absolutely. Video is, I mean, Facebook and Instagram push video more than they push anything else in their algorithm. So it's video, then it's carousel posts, like posts with multiple photos, because it makes people want to engage and flip through them. And then it's static images, and then it's text, and then it's links. So if you're posting links, like stop doing that. Don't put links in your post, in your main content, because it's probably not getting seen. And also don't like share things from other people's pages. That really doesn't show up much either. And your network doesn't care what everyone else has to say. They're your friend for a reason. They want to hear what you have to say. But we could turn this into like the longest social media training ever. There's so many tips and tricks, but I hope that this was helpful for you to think about writing content that really connects with your main ideal customer. And I hope that you kind of have jotted down some notes about your content pillars and stories you could start telling. And it allows you to maybe batch some content, right? Like Jessica was saying, like you think about your whole plexus story, you're sleeping better, you have more energy, you don't crave sugar, you're not as bloated, you're losing weight. That's like 5 different stories. It doesn't need to be one post. There's your week, there's your next week of content right there, right? So spend an hour tonight and write a short story about each one of those. There's your homework. Anyway, does anyone have any questions or anything? Feel free to unmute yourself or put it in the chat. If anything, you can always drop it in our group chat later if you need to. But otherwise, all right, guys, thank you so much for showing up tonight. I appreciate you all being here. I know Jess and I appreciate it. Jess, wonderful job. Hope this was valuable. The recording will be posted soon. All right, good night.